really excited today to have our friend Aaron from Givee Select, which is a division of PCNA, to talk about supercharging channel enablement and basically enabling distributors. And so, housekeeping and background before we jump in here. As always, we are recording this webinar. Those of you that signed up for this will receive this in your inbox as an email, probably within the next 48 hours. This webinar will also be hosted on Znode's YouTube channel as well, if you would like to search for it and come back and watch it again. And then finally, we have the Q&A bubble, which is part of the Zoom controls, which should be at the bottom of your screen. Ideally, we are going to hold off on questions until the end. If there is a burning question, please do feel free to interrupt during this webinar, and we'll do our best to field those questions, but we do have time at the end here for Q&A. So we're going to start off, as always, with introductions. We'll be introducing Aaron in a few minutes here. We're going to get into the story of PCNA and Givee Select. We are then going to hand the controls over to Aaron for a demo, wrap up with Q&A, and if we have time, we'll go through a quick lightning round and talk about vacations and where Aaron likes to vacation. So, as always, the other thing is we try and keep these to 20 to 30 minutes, no longer. This is a very exciting webinar, though, because we are actually going to show some really cool features that were released recently from Znode. We call it the B stores, where the middle B in B2B to X e-commerce can actually manage their own store. But before we get into features, why don't we start with introductions? Aaron, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Tom, and happy to be here and nice to virtually see all of you. I am the director of product for Givee at PCNA. We'll get into what Givee is and what PCNA is in a little bit. As background, I've worked in product management now for various size tech companies, from startups to Fortune 100 companies for my entire career. But started with PCNA about a year ago, right when we were launching the Givee product. So
Awesome.
excited to chat a little bit about our relationship with Znode and some of the things that it's unlocked for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. We're happy to have you here. Welcome, everyone. I'm Tom Fleury. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Amla Commerce, the parent company of Znode. We also have another product called Artify, which does online product customization. I think Aaron may touch on that a little bit as we talk today as well. So, Aaron, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about PCNA, Givee Select. I know you have a couple different brands. PCNA is the parent brand, but talk a little bit about the business model and what Givee Select does for that business model.
Yeah, I'd love to. So PCNA is the largest supplier in the promotional products industry. So we provide customized and personalized hard goods, apparel, a bunch of other items that ultimately companies can decorate and then use those items for whatever their purposes, company stores or events or their own purposes, sharing that with their customers, etc. And the reason why we started Givee from PCNA's perspective was we noticed there's a lot of waste in the industry. So as a promotional provider of those goods, there's a lot of company events that people would run, or there's a lot of giveaways where you would want, you have a polo with your brand on it, or a water bottle with your brand on it, and you would give those either away, or people would order them from either company stores or some other method. And so we noticed that a lot of the companies that were running events specifically and trade shows would buy from us in bulk. We would get massive orders of, if it was an apparel item of various sizes or colors or what have you, that we would send to one location. And then only a portion of those, a fraction of those items would be distributed to the end user or the guest at those events. And so that is an incredibly inefficient way to essentially distribute branded items. And so instead, we were thinking of a solution that would give guests much more of a control over the items that they received by essentially going to a storefront, seeing a curated assortment of items that they could select from, and then just selecting what they wanted, choose the size and or the color that they wanted, and ship it directly to them. So therefore, there was no waste. There was no need for a company to order in bulk and have, 60% of the items that they ordered in a storage facility or wind up in a landfill somewhere. And then we would just be able to unlock that, using some sort of technology, and companies could use that for whatever their purposes are. So there's probably 8 or 9 different use cases that we've seen people use already today, but we used both Znode and Artify to unlock that experience for us in a pretty big way.
That's awesome. Thank you, Aaron. And so there are people on this webinar, people that may watch this video that probably aren't as familiar with the promotional product space. So I'm going to chime in and maybe give some perspective. So PCNA is a supplier, meaning that you supply products to distributors, but the distributors actually sell to the end customer, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that is correct.
So, and that's one piece. And then the other piece is because these items that you sell are customized or personalized, they can't be returned. So your story about sustainability is so important because if, for example, I were running a trade show and I ordered 1,000 personalized products with a logo on it, and 60% actually get taken home by the people who attend the trade show, the other 40% can't go back on the shelf once they're personalized. That's where the waste in this whole sustainability story really comes in. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There's companies, any especially large company, call it Google or Coca-Cola or you name it, they have such strict brand regulations that they ultimately don't want something with their brand's name on it to get in the wrong hands, or not go through the right method of gifting. So they're pretty strict around that. So which leads to ultimately, as you were mentioning, more waste.
Absolutely. And so in those, I'm assuming those items then do end up either getting shredded, destroyed, and put into a landfill, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Wow. So great story, not just about the technology, but obviously doing something good for the earth as well, which is, a hot topic nowadays with sustainability. And then when these stores are set up for, again, for example, a trade show, it's actually the distributors that you work with that are calling on those trade shows that you're enabling these distributors through this technology, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, as a supplier, we don't actually act as a distributor, meaning that we don't sell direct to those end companies or customers. So we have a Rolodex of thousands of distributors that we work with that bring new opportunities to us in various fashions. And then we essentially decorate items based on the company that they're working with, work with the distributor to send those to either one or more facilities based on whatever direction they want, or in our case, directly to consumers, and sort of work that way. So the distributors are sort of the middleman between us and the end user.
Got it. Great. Thank you so much for that. So, I'm going to ask you the question. So why Znode? How did Znode play into this as a product that PCNA works with, an e-commerce product?
So we had already had a relationship with Alma through Znode and Artify on our parent company's website, PCNA.com. And the way that we were ultimately looking to get this thing to the market was we wanted a tool that we were familiar with. We wanted relationships that we already had that were very strong, in order to take a market-led approach as opposed to a tech build approach. So we can learn, we can change, we can pivot, and we can ultimately build the most valuable product that the market ultimately wants, as opposed to building something for, call it 9 to 10 months, and then just learning that, oh, wait, actually, you hit the ball, a couple of times, or might have a decent batting average, but you actually miss more than not. And so a lot of the stuff that you created is essentially tech debt and or waste. So all of that or through all of that, we ultimately knew what we were getting with the Alma team, through Znode's functionality, especially. We were very comfortable that we could easily transition a lot of the work that we had done on the PCNA side over to Givee, so we can take that market-led approach much earlier.
Nice. So speed to market, huge factor, not custom building it yourself and absorbing all the tech debt that comes with that. I know that your go-to-market, the whole way that you use the platform is also pretty complex B2B e-commerce. PCNA runs a B2B store where distributors can log in and order in bulk. And this is another approach of really B2B to B e-commerce. But again, that type of complexity, especially with customized products, would be difficult to custom build and get to market quickly with, I would assume. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of additional integration work with all of the different services that we have on the PCNA side to make sure that once an order is placed on the storefront, we can actually route that to the proper location and get those out the door in a user efficient manner. So we're not quite as fast as Amazon actually is shipping products, but we're not going to be as slow as Alibaba.
Awesome. Good. Well, Aaron, do you want to give a demo of the actual platform now?
Yeah, I would love to.
I am going to stop sharing.
Okay. I'm going to move my screen over here so I can actually see. All right, Tom, are you able to see my screen?
We're able to see your screen, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll demo this in two different ways. The first way is what the guest experience would look like. And all of this was created with Znode and Artify. And then I'll demonstrate very quickly some of the backend functionality on how the distributors themselves can now go through and create stores. So we launched, as taking a step a little bit back, we launched this in two different segments or two different stages. The first stage was our beta stage, and that was where we would create stores manually on behalf of our distributors. And that was a way for us to not only validate the product, but also, see the impacts that it could potentially have for distributors with their customers in a very real fashion. So we built about 200 stores in the last, call it 10 months, and ran to completion from start to end for live stores, almost 60 stores during that same period. So I'll show you that experience from a guest side. But then just recently, about last month, we launched a self-serve tool, which is a store builder. So now all of that manual effort that we put into creating stores on behalf of our distributors can now do for themselves and actually have a little bit more flexibility than we had last year. So the very first thing, this is just the demo site. The very first thing that a user or a guest would see they would see a URL that would open likely from either an email or however the company ultimately wants to communicate that to them. They would get over to this landing page, which is their gifting site, and then they would be met with some sort of welcome message. Welcome to our event, gift yourself something of that nature. All they would have to do then would be to put their first name, last name, and email address into the platform to get in. So I'm going to put my first and last in here, and I'm just going to start with a fake email. I'm going to put a bunch of random numbers at the end. And what that's going to do is not allow me in. So I'm going to get a little error message that says I have to be in the system ahead of time because we want to gate these users in. We don't want everybody and their brother coming to a public site and ordering 1,000 things on the distributor's dime or on the company dime. We only want the guests that are already predetermined in the system to get access. So I believe this email has access. That will get me then into the platform. For this site, two-factor authentication is turned off, but we do have that availability just in case we want an extra layer of security. But as a guest, I'm now able to go through essentially e-commerce shopping experience, right? I can switch my swatch on certain items. I can go into items and change either sizes or colors or whatever's available. But one thing that Givee offers for the PCNA distributor that the rest of PCNA does not offer is the personalized nature of some of these items. So as an example, I'm going to go into, let's say, this journal book, because there's a bunch of variants here. And this product, you can see, has my name on it automatically. Most items coming from PCNA do not have this, but we do have print on demand available through one of our subsidiaries named Spoke. So the personalized aspect of this means that you can, add whatever item you want here. I can add my name, a nickname, my last name, whatever is personal to me. And what we've already started to see is that items that are personalized and ordered are kept for their uniqueness much more frequently and much better ultimately than some of the other items. So if you have a water bottle with your company logo on it, you might not want to keep that, let's say, after you leave that company, or if it gets old and run down. Whereas if it has your name on it, you're probably not going to throw it away quite as easily. So this is actually a huge value add for guests. So what I'm going to do, I'll just add an additional initial here just to show that you can edit this to whatever you'd like. And then the personalization is actually set at the variant level. So if I go to this navy product, I've got a completely different logo here, a different looking font, and that is all set up at, again, whatever color level or whatever size level based on the product.
So the personalization persists regardless of the variant.
Mhm.
And then this personalization is being powered by Artify, the product customization platform that Amla Commerce also owns, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, any imagery or interactivity with personalization comes from Artify, and everything else is built into Znode.
Great.
So
Thank you.
those two work very, very well in sync. But that would put me into a shopping experience where I can go directly to the checkout and get through the entire process that you would just like an e-commerce site. You would get a tracking email. You would also get the confirmation email that was sent to you so you can follow along and see which item you ultimately ordered, just like you would on any other e-commerce site. So that essentially is the guest experience. The store builder tool is actually incredibly easy as well. All you would have to do is go to the Get Started button if you're a distributor. Click on here. You're going to be taken into an onboarding process, which will ask you who is your store for, what are who are you building for, what is the logo, and give us some account level details. And then you'd be able to get into the store admin tool and build as many stores as you ultimately want to that could look exactly like the guest experience that I just showed. So instead of going through that entire tool, I figured I would just show you mine very quickly.
And so, Aaron, I guess the use case here is you have these distributors and maybe they win a major event, a trade show, etc. They're standing up multiple stores because they've won 8 different events or 8 different things that they're providing products for, correct? So
Mhm.
this is a lot of people who are on this watching this webinar know that Znode's very well known for multi-store e-commerce, but this is like multi-store to a whole new level because you have thousands of distributors who may each stand up 10 to 100 stores. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no max on how many stores they ultimately want to set up.
Wow.
All of those can be added directly from this admin view. I can create a new store here and continue to build off of this. But it looks like I already have about 11 stores for myself, maybe more. So yeah, there is no issue with creating or running stores simultaneously.
Got it. Great.
Um, And then into the store builder, I'll just brush through this very quickly. You can design this with your own logos. You can change copy on the site. You can update, different artwork files, and that's going to go directly on the products. You can go into the product builder and see the entire catalog that we have for Givee, which is right now 186 products. You can filter however you need to, enable, disable products to add them directly to your site. And then you can add guests to get into the actual site that you're building. You can preview those at any time. Anything that you would presume you would get from a store building tool is essentially here. There's many more features that we're releasing this year that will give us the ability to do much, much more and ultimately unlock many more use cases than we have today because they're used primarily for gifting today and for events. But you could essentially run later on this year full e-commerce stores. So I'm not going to say we're competing with Shopify anytime soon, but in at least an ease of use of setting a store up, we definitely would be.
Wow. That's awesome. So I'm taking a look at time. We're at about 22 minutes. So my understanding, usually I ask, because we have a somewhat of a template here on how we do these webinars, I say, well, what was it like pre-Znode? But this just didn't exist in general pre-Znode. Am I correct that the business model wasn't possible pre-Znode? Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah.
So what's next for Givee? You talked a little bit about you have some roadmap items. You talked about full e-commerce capabilities. Is that even allowing distributors to stand up customer stores that have a longer shelf life than an event store, or what does that look like?
Yeah, we really are our entire for lack of a better term, roadmap. I don't like that term because it changes so frequently. But the entirety of what we're doing in the future and what we're ultimately trying to release to the wild is competitor or not competitor, excuse me, is customer led. And so it's all about adding value for distributors. What do they want? What are the cases that they're trying to sell to companies? How can Givee potentially, help them better with their business? And so that means, functionality like e-commerce, which is a big one. We've gotten that request probably more than anything else. So that's the ability for end users to pay by credit card directly from their sites and funnel that correctly through, through payment gateways. We want to do better on the operational front as well. So we want the ability for our distributors to ship to one location in a bulk ship format, ship to multiple locations. We want to update the guest experience to make sure that if it is an e-commerce site, that they have the full browsability and searchability that they would get from a really good other e-commerce site. Decision conversion related features, search functionality, category level functionality, so you can browse by category and things of that nature. Because right now we are very much in this events focused gifting environment, but eventually by the end of this year, we will, be running employee appreciation stores and could be company stores that live indefinitely that either take credit card or don't. So we sort of need to think through and release features that are, again, impact driven primarily for distributors and the companies that they serve.
Awesome. Great answer. I think there's one other insight, and I learned this when I was at the PPAI show in Las Vegas a few weeks back. What's unique about your category of business, the promotional products, is that it's very common in other manufacturer supplier distributor relationships where a manufacturer supplier 50 to 80% of their orders comes from 5 major distributors. In the promotional product space, it's the opposite. I think the stat that I heard was no more than 5% of any of your business comes from one distributor. So you're really enabling many smaller distributors versus other industries may have. I think about plumbing, and Ferguson's the big name in plumbing, where they probably run 50 to 80% of all projects in plumbing as a distributor nationally. But you are really in a unique case where small distributors make up the bulk of all orders that come to PCNA. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So
Okay.
it's which I prefer as a product person. If I was maybe a salesperson, maybe I wouldn't prefer that quite as much. But it's nice because it gives us a very well-rounded view of what the market wants, and really does help us sort of tailor the the features that we ultimately want to release and we want to ship for those distributors. Um, uh, it helps us tailor them to the distributors in many different facets to better understand, who are the different types of distributors, what are they ultimately trying to do, what are the companies that they're speaking with ultimately want. And it gives us, I think, maybe a more well-rounded view of the industry as opposed to being dominated by maybe one or two players.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's the ultimate story of channel enablement. It really is. How to use digital for channel enablement, and obviously operational gains, because you don't have to have sales reps on the phone with thousands of distributors helping to take orders and manage these events.
Mhm.
All right, so Aaron, you've done a great job. We do have one question which I'm going to take offline. We have about 3 minutes left. We're coming up on 30 minutes. So quick lightning round. It's spring or spring-ish. It's still February. Favorite spring break vacation, or do you have any plans this year?
Yeah, my favorite thing to do in the spring, and this is kind of goes against the grain a little bit, is go skiing. And the reason is I've been doing this for many decades at this point now, is to go at the end of spring break where you get colleges from all over the place as sort of the last skiers to ski resorts, and then the traffic just dies down, but the snow does not. So it's a very good time to go. If there was a larger webinar, I probably wouldn't give away that secret, because most people like to go in January or February. But in my opinion, ski vacations in the spring is the best.
And do you have plans this year for a vacation?
Yep, going out to Colorado with some family and friends.
Awesome. Nice. Well,
Yeah,
enjoy it. I just got back from a short weekend in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is not quite Colorado, but it's still pretty decent hills for the Midwest.
yeah, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Aaron. Well, thank you so much. Great job. We really appreciate it. And for all those of you that attended the webinar today, we appreciate your time. And again, this will be posted on YouTube and shared digitally after this is done recording. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Aaron. Great job.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, everybody.